The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Happy Friday. Welcome in Off the Bench. We're just 2 hours away from actually getting this weekend started. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. Guys, good morning. I don't know why, but I got like 9 hours of sleep last night. I should be full of energy, and I am not. I'm on my second cup of coffee. I have already had my 5-hour energy ready to fire away here shortly. No clue. Maybe there is such thing as too much sleep. I should not be as tired as I am today.
I'm actually in the same exact boat with you, Justin. Guess what time I went to bed last night? And I'll let you guess what time I woke up as well. I went to bed last night at 8 o'clock.
Wow.
Did
you go 8 to 8?
I woke up at 8 o'clock.
Wow.
8 to 8. 8 to 8.
The illustrious 12-hour sleep.
That's right, and I feel no better for it. So that's just where I am. But yeah, it's a day. I mean, the weather's still bad, and it's going to rain again tonight.
Sure
hopefully, is. Hopefully it misses the Reds game. I would like to watch that one, but
it might actually work out for us tonight.
Okay.
Have you thought about that?
No.
Hunter Greene goes 5 innings of amazing baseball, and we just win that game 1-0.
Or it's a tie 0-0.
Yeah, we just tie.
I love how yesterday, too, the Cowboy, you could tell sometimes he has no filter anymore, and he just doesn't care. He just ripped the Reds. He ripped everybody that, they could have probably gotten another inning in before that storm truly hit yesterday. So he was kind of fired up about it, but it doesn't matter. The Reds came back and won, so we'll talk about that. Or not really came back, but they got the win. They came back after losing 2 games, the day before in that doubleheader. But we'll get to that coming up here shortly. Jacob already has questioned my Bengals allegiance because of an interview I lined up for today's show. I did not. This was a pure coincidence, and some people don't believe in coincidences. That's fine. Austin Mock is going to join us. He's from The Athletic. He covers college football in the NFL, and he put out his draft grades. I just saw that he had his DMs open on Twitter, so I just decided to reach out. I didn't actually look at his draft grades until after. Once I had him lined up today, I realized that he had given the Bengals.
Before you say it, Elliot, do you want to take a guess on who his big winner of the draft was? Big winner of the draft.
I'm going to guess that the Cleveland Browns ended up pretty big winners in this one.
Do you want to guess what grade he gave the Cincinnati Bengals?
Do we want to spoil that now?
No, maybe not.
Okay. Because I will, because we know the answer to it.
You didn't know the answer to the first one, but that one.
What was the? Yeah, I mean
the Browns with an A double plus.
Wow.
Double? Wow.
I don't know.
I had no idea.
Shador.
Yeah, there you go. But I truly did not know, but it doesn't matter. No, he's a good dude. I'm excited to have him on. He's going to join us coming up here in about an hour. We're going to talk about basically everyone has a different way of how they go about grading, these teams in the draft. And we're about a week removed from the draft, and it's kind of the dust is settling a little bit. So he'll join us coming up later on. We'll talk NFL, Bengals, AFC North, all that with him. Coming up later on. MLB baseball attendance is up. In fact, it's the highest opening month of the season attendance-wise across all of Major League Baseball since 2017. So what has led to such a big increase in attendance in the first month of the season? We'll weigh in on that coming up around the corner. NBA playoffs, which we'll cover coming up here in headlines. The Reds got a big win yesterday to split the series with the Cardinals. Let's see. What else am I missing? Oh, yeah, Diana Rossini, also with The Athletic, has an update regarding the the ongoing negotiations that the Bengals are doing with Trey Hendrickson. So we got a loaded show here today, but before I do what I did yesterday and not introduce Casey into the show, let's introduce Casey into the show. Casey, good morning. How are we?
Good morning.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Yesterday, very similar to you guys, I got a good night's rest and woke up feeling very tired. Maybe it's just the day. Maybe today is just a weird day. Reds split the series.
That's right, Casey.
Can't ask for anything better than that, I guess.
Well, I can ask for them to win the series.
Yeah, I could ask for them to win one game out of a
when they were about to lose the series.
Or sweep the series is what they should have done.
But
the Cardinals are poopy butt, Casey. They're real bad.
We've described teams in a lot of ways. That might be the just to throw that out.
I think poopy butt is actually a pretty good description.
On a scale of very good to poopy butt,
Where did the Reds fall?
Yeah, where did the Reds fall? Wow. Friday open to the show. You got to love it. You got to love it. But I tell you what, to pick up the energy, to increase the energy
It's
of the
also
show.
it's also the eve of the Kentucky Derby. It's the greatest. Is it the greatest 3 minutes in sports or greatest 2 minutes in sports? I forget whatever they say, but I will be watching and I will have money on it.
Yeah, me too.
Toby Keith has a horse racing in it.
Xavier Legette, Panthers wide receiver,
Really?
official NFL correspondent at the
Really?
Kentucky Derby.
How about that?
I hope he's on a horse.
I love that.
Put him on a horse.
Churchill Downs, that's where all the big wigs will be this coming up weekend. Any of you big wigs? Any of you going to be there this coming up weekend?
Jacob's the only one that would have a shot
It's
at
on my
going.
bucket list. It's
And
very
because
high
I
on
know
my bucket
Jacob's
list.
got. I would pay to see Jacob's outfit that day. But unfortunately my wardrobe doesn't warrant me getting within 35 yards of Churchill Downs.
Speaking of the Kentucky Derby really quickly, this is a little insider Chatterbox here. I reached out to them for our video boards.
Okay.
And they are interested in having our video boards down there next year.
Oh, wow.
So we might actually be there next year.
I will
Wanna, you know.
gladly work the Kentucky Derby video board event.
That is actually interesting nonetheless. But have you guys been to Churchill?
No, I have
Before,
not.
like anything, like I know the Derby, we talked about that, but Churchill in general. I did my bachelor. I told you guys yesterday. I did my held my bachelor party there the week before. Not so the tickets were like $50 or whatever a person, and the same tickets for the same seat that we were in a week later for the Derby was like $3,000 or $4,000. So slight increase as far as that's concerned. But either way, we'll reset. Let's step aside. When we come back, we'll pick up the energy because Elliot always brings the energy. He always brings the juice. We got our guy Elliot with Elliot's headlines, and that's what we're going to do when we come back. More off the bench when we return here on a Friday. All right, and we are back off the bench. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here on a Friday. We'll talk Reds coming up around the corner. The Reds found a way to split the series with the Cardinals. Of course, they had a very impressive win in Game 1 of the series. Game 2, of course, gets postponed due to weather. Then they lose the doubleheader the next day. Vibes were low. They got outscored 15-1 in the loss in the doubleheader in both games. Vibes weren't great heading into yesterday's game, but they regained those vibes. We'll talk about that coming up here. Just a little bit, the Reds will kick off a series with the Nationals later on tonight with Hunter Greene on the mound at Great American Ballpark. But before we get back into the Reds, hopefully we get an update on Austin Hayes. By the way, today we'll talk about that. Spencer Steer, is he starting to heat up at the plate? We'll discuss that here shortly as well. But before we do all that, let's send it to our guy Elliot for Elliot's Headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines, whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's Headlines.
That's right, Mr. Voice. That's right. Here are the headlines from yesterday into this morning. The Reds, they led 2-1 when the game went into a weather delay yesterday, and then they scored 7 unanswered to win 9-1. I asked Jacob before the show started, when do you think exactly the Cardinals decided to pack it in yesterday? And I'd imagine it was about 5 minutes after that delay was called. But good for the Reds. They take advantage of it. They lose 9-1 the night before. They win 9-1 yesterday. So, good job. Spencer Steer, Jose Trevino each hit home runs in the game. 6 out of the 9 starters got a hit. I think it was Blake Dunn, Elly, and Gavin Lux were the only 3 Reds to not reach via the hit. But the Reds and the Nationals play again tonight. 6:10, an earlier start tonight. 6:10, I'd imagine that's because of the fireworks show. It's Hunter Greene versus Mitchell Parker. Parker is coming in with a 3-1 record. and a 2.65 ERA with a 1.13 whip. Hunter Greene, obviously phenomenal. The Rockies, they win back-to-back games for the first time this season yesterday.
Heyo.
They trailed 3-1 late. They were able to come all the way back. Good for them. The Rockies get their 5th or 6th win of the year. 6th win of the year. The Tigers, they crushed the Angels 10-4. Mike Trout will be returning to the injured list. That is it for our good friend Mike Trout for the foreseeable future. For the record, the Angels did say it was not serious, quote unquote. So who knows? Who knows? He was ranked
like
down.
Reds not serious, or like regular baseball team.
There's no way to know. And they did say, for the record, or I guess they didn't say it, but statistics have showed it. He's the worst right fielder in baseball. Did you know this?
No way.
Yeah, he's the worst outfielder in baseball. One of them. So an unfortunate season here for Mike Trout. I think he was still hitting like $165. I don't know. The Blue Jays, they come back to beat the Red Sox late yesterday. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit the go-ahead home run in the 8th inning, 4-2 the final score there. The Nationals, they avoid the sweep against Philadelphia, 4-2 they win. The Rangers, they get blanked by the Athletics 3-0. The Diamondbacks, they win 4-2. Juan Soto hits 2 solo shots at Citi Field. Those are his first 2 home runs at Citi Field this season. How about that? They did lose again. Royals, they crushed the Rays 8-2. They have now won 9 of their last 10. 9 of their last 10. And the Cubs, they smoked the Pirates on Paul Skeens Day, 8-3. Paul Skeens, 5 innings. He allowed 3 solo shots, I believe, and 4 walks before the game, or before being pulled from the game. And here's the thing about the Pirates that's fun. If you're going to lose by 5 runs on Paul Skeens Day, you're just not going to have a shot any day.
No. Paul Skeens' strikeout prop, only 1 win on the over this season.
Damn.
2 strikeouts yesterday,
Damn.
over 6.5, most bet prop in America.
Bust? Overhyped?
Maybe the
How
Pirates
early is it to say?
Pirates are glad they didn't give him that extension.
That's right. They did have a nice bobblehead day, though.
Yeah, it was real small. Did you see that?
No.
It was really small.
Oh, no. It's really unfortunate what the Pirates have done. But good for them. They lose again, and they have no hope at all in their future. In the National Hockey League, the Oilers, they win the game and the series against the Kings. The 4th consecutive season where the Kings get eliminated by the Oilers. The Avalanche wins 7-4 over the Stars to even it up at 3-3. Casey, thoughts on the big win? I'm sure you watched it all.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I watched it all when I went to bed at 8:40.
Yeah. I already told you guys it was going to come down to Game 7.
You did. You did say that.
I said that on, Game 2?
Yeah, I think you said that earlier.
You did?
I did. And I just know this team. I know that they pull through when it matters, especially against the Dallas Stars. Go natural disasters. Go Avalanche.
That's right. That's our Avalanche and our Stars. Both of them. We have both of them. The Golden Knights, they win the series in 6 over the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild, that's a team I'll never think about in my entire life.
Well, you won't have to, because the Wild are the first team in the MLB, NBA, NFL, or NHL history to make the playoffs 8 or more times in a 10-year span, but lose in the opening round every time.
Oh, no. The Minnesota Wild.
It gets better.
Oh.
The Canadiens made the playoffs 8 times in 10 seasons spanning the 30s and 40s, but they had a bye twice, which allows the Wild to hold this record alone.
The poor Wild fans out there. I couldn't even imagine it.
I always say
Cincinnati's
towards the bottom of the barrel in terms of sports cities. Minnesota, man.
Minnesota's tough. Yikes. The Maple Leafs, they move on. They win 4-2 last night against the Senators, and I believe they took that series 4-1. So good for the Maple Leafs. They are moving on. They're moving on. Heading over to the association, the Clippers, they force a Game 7 with a 111-105 win last night. James Harden had 28, Kawhi Leonard 27, and Norman Powell having 24 points. That was more than enough to take down the Nuggets. The Knicks, they take the series from the Pistons on a game-winning 3 by Jalen Brunson with 5 seconds left. 116-113, the final score last night. Nobody won a game in that series by more than double digits. It was 9 points, was the highest win. Pretty much, I think every game except for that Game 1 was close. So an unbelievable series, but unfortunately, the Pistons, they do not advance.
And equally, unfortunately, the Knicks have to play the Celtics, and the Celtics are minus 950 to win that series.
That's right. I want to make it very clear. I did see some Celtics stats regarding Jason Tatum yesterday.
Yes.
On how good he was. I purposefully didn't put them in.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I just want to make that very clear.
Just close your eyes. What do you see?
I see Derek White. All I see is, and all I've ever seen was Derek White. But those are your headlines.
All right, off the bench, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliott Ring, and Jacob Tissett with you here. With this, again, we'll just kind of slowly just transition over to the Cincinnati Reds. You touched on it at the top of headlines. Obviously, we talked yesterday about the importance of that matchup with the Cardinals. We weren't sure if the Reds were even going to get that in with all the rain that was coming in. That game was delayed, but they end up resuming play at about 3:15 yesterday. They're able to complete the game, a 9-1 final, as you talked about, after losing 9-1 the game before. Pretty good day at the plate for the majority of the Reds, as far as up and down the lineup is concerned. Were you guys surprised that the Reds rebounded the way that they did? I felt like yesterday was one of those games where things could have snowballed pretty heavily out of control if they lose yesterday, because they had all that momentum, especially after extending that win streak to 5 or 6 or whatever it was when they won game 1 against the Cards. But then when they got swept in that doubleheader, it just truly felt like, okay, especially it's just the way they did it too. I mean, getting outscored 15-1 in both of those losses, I was kind of nervous heading into yesterday's game. Remember, we highlighted the fact that the Reds started 16-13 last year, and then after that 16-13 start, they would go on to win to lose 8 straight and then 11 of their next 12. So right around this time, they're 16-13. They get swept in that doubleheader that day. They lose yesterday. All of a sudden, it feels like it's going to snowball out of control. I thought yesterday was a big win. I thought the way that they kind of shook off what happened 2 days ago, they just kind of put that behind them, and then the guys picked up right where they left off the day, a couple days before. I thought it was a great rebound win for the Reds. I thought it was a mentally tough performance yesterday, just because of the fact that very easily could have snowballed out of control. We saw the youth of this team last year, where it's like they kind of got, when something bad would happen, they didn't do a good job at rebounding back from it. We've seen this team kind of get hit in the gut a little bit a couple times throughout the month of April, but the way that they've responded, you could tell there's more veteran leadership on this team. Some of the youth is another year older. I thought yesterday was just a good quality win from a mental toughness standpoint. They didn't let the day before get to them. I thought it was a huge win from that perspective.
Yeah, if you listened to the show yesterday, you know the season was on the line.
That's right.
So thank God up above that the Reds got the win. Otherwise, what would we have done for the next 4 months?
Who knows? There's really no way of knowing. I guess we would have hoped the Avalanche or the Stars kept on dancing in the hockey league. So, yeah, listen, it was a good win for the Reds. They did a nice job of bouncing back from an abysmal, what was that, Wednesday? So I don't know. I don't have too much to say about it other than the fact that Andrew Abbott, I think, has looked very, very, very good this season, and as long as that can continue, I'm going to be impressed. Matt McLain, I know we were worried about Matt McLain. He had an RBI hit yesterday, so I don't know. There's some positives to take away, and I'm sure we'll get into them here in a second, especially regarding Graham Ashcraft and how important the bullpen's been this season. But the Reds have to start taking advantage of these games, and I'm hoping they do it. I know they swept the Rockies. That's great. We got to keep the series train rolling. It's hard to win a 4-game series. I understand that, and the rain delay might have affected what was the initial plan in this series. Saying that, you got to stay rolling. You got to stay hot tonight against the Nationals team that respectfully isn't all that good.
Luis May, we got a chance to see him for the first time. Obviously, a little bit of a different debut than what we talked about with Chase Petty, who, when you start a game, obviously, there's just a little bit more weight on your shoulders. May comes in, very comfortable spot to debut in, obviously. But we talked about all the stuff that kind of made him exciting, and he put that on display yesterday. We saw him striking out his first batter he faced.
Yeah, and I think that's really what you want. Luis May lived in the strike zone yesterday. Obviously, some of those wilder pitches, and you had Jose Trevino behind the plate to rein that in. He's a wild card, and we knew that coming in, but he's a guy with incredible upside, and he showed you yesterday why they called him up and why they think he can be a crucial piece of this bullpen that has absolutely been a strength of the Reds so far this year. I certainly was surprised yesterday. I don't know that they would have put him in if they didn't get to a situation where it was a 9-1 game. I think that certainly allowed them to have him debut yesterday, and I think it looked really good. It's probably the best you could ask for out of him in that initial debut. Strikes out the first batter, gets the next 2 relatively easily. 1-2-3 inning for Luis May in the debut, and he's a guy that I know I'm excited to see when he comes out of the bullpen until he gives me a reason not to be. And I know it was 2 outs in the ninth, but they pointed it out on the broadcast on TV as well. All the Reds players lined up across the railing in the dugout when Luis May came out to pitch, and I think they were all interested to see what the young kid had as well. I mean, he was throwing 101, 102, which is always exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for him. I don't know how long he's going to stay up in Cincinnati, but I imagine just getting that experience, getting a little bit of work, boosted that confidence and helps, especially when you get sent down, it's something to work for. It's something to work back for. You can pitch in the majors. You just did it. You saw it. You look good. Let's keep working down there, and when they need me, I'll be ready. So I'm hoping that's going to be the attitude, and I'm sure it will be the attitude because it was a cool moment yesterday.
You mentioned you don't know how long he'll be called up. I mean, obviously Alexis Diaz optioned back to AAA. Is he basically just the replacement for Diaz in this bullpen at this point, or you guys still think that another roster move could be made sending him back?
Yeah, I don't know because Alexis Diaz's role, I'd imagine they had someone that could pitch in decently high leverage situations. I don't think Alexis Diaz came back from the IL this year to pitch in blowouts. I don't think that was the initial plan for him. Right. I imagine it was maybe even to work back into that closer role or at least an eighth inning guy, and he never got close. If Luis May can be that guy, great. I'm all the more for it. I'd imagine they're going to look for a little bit more consistency in somebody that's already been here for a long time. I could be wrong, but I imagine that's where they're going to go.
We talked about the impressiveness of the fact that, him throwing, over 100, upper 90s, over 100 on a couple of those pitches. I mean, that was fun to watch. But I tell you what, we saw the same thing from Graham Ashcraft. I know you mentioned him a little bit ago. Elliot, Graham Ashcraft, I mean, it talked about in the post game with Jim Day, the fact that that's probably the best he's ever felt throwing the baseball. Yeah. I mean, that's the hardest he's ever thrown, and it's the most comfortable he's ever felt throwing the baseball. And he said, obviously, he's a former starter, but he felt like that was the best performance he's had as a Red, obviously in a smaller chunk of time. We've talked about sometimes like pitchers who struggle, starting pitchers who struggle to go the distance. I mean, we would see that from Ashcraft where he'd give you 2-3 solid innings and then the wheels fall off. And that's not, that's obviously not ideal when you're talking about a starting pitcher. But when you're coming out of the bullpen, you don't have to try to limit yourself. You can go hard right when you go out there because you're only going to be out there for a short amount of time. We saw that yesterday. Graham Ashcraft really he's had such an impressive season, kind of adjusting to the bullpen role. And I don't even think there's been an adjustment period. I feel like he's been great since the beginning of the season. It's been really fun watching him embrace that role. But yesterday, I agree with him. That easily was probably one of the best performances we've seen from him as a Red.
I don't know if there's a pitcher in this Reds organization right now I have more confidence in than when Graham Ashcraft's on the mound in the role he's playing. I mean, he's been absolutely nails all year long. And yesterday, I know we just talked about Luis May. Luis May had 101.3, which was the fastest pitch in the game. And then Graham Ashcraft right behind him at 100.5, 2 more Luis May pitches, and then Graham Ashcraft again to round out the top 5 of the fastest pitches yesterday. And I don't know if I'm just misremembering it or if he's really dialed in now that he's in the bullpen, but I don't remember Graham Ashcraft getting comfortably above 100 as a starting pitcher.
No.
That cutter, certainly lived around 97, 98, but now he's getting up to 99, 100 in all of these outings, and it's remarkable what he's been able to do in a bullpen role, and this is something that I think a lot of Reds fans saw coming. I don't know if him being one of the best relievers in all of baseball is necessarily what we saw coming, but a guy that we kind of pointed to, hey, if he doesn't fit in the rotation, this is a guy that we would really like to see in the bullpen. The energy, the emotion, the pitch mix. I mean, he went just slider and cutter yesterday, almost exactly 50-50, and dominated on all 9 batters he faced. So, yeah, I think, there's not really a better option than Graham Ashcraft right now when you come to the role he's playing on this team, and that's what he was asked about yesterday. He said, other than a couple starts, this is the best he's felt, and he seems to really be, diving headfirst into this reliever role and doing it the best he can. You saw when he struck out that last batter yesterday, the Reds posted the video. The emotion he shows on the mound, that's exactly what you want out of a relief pitcher coming in and getting those crucial outs in must-win situations. I could not be happier with what I've seen from Graham Ashcraft this year. He's a guy that's super, super easy to root for, and it really seems like he's given a second life to his career this year moving to the bullpen.
I'm proud to watch him. I think that's what I take away most is last year, I know it didn't work, and fans were ready to give up on him and everything like that. And it was frustrating to watch because he looked so good to start games, but he was unable to continue that for that third time through the lineup. And that's what we talked about all offseason. And I think Jacob and I were both in the same boat that he could be really, really good in this role. He has a 0.57 ERA in 15 innings of work. He has 17 strikeouts. He's been incredible. And I know we gave out like the April MVP awards yesterday. And I'm not saying he would have been the MVP of April, but maybe the most improved for sure. I mean, I can't look at another guy either in this lineup or on that rotation or even in the bullpen that has taken the step that he has. He is the dominant X factor of that bullpen. He can go 1 inning. He can go 3.5 innings. It doesn't matter. 3 2/3 innings. It doesn't matter. He has that utility in him, that versatility that Nick Martinez had last year, and you're seeing it in a complete different way. It's dominating baseball. He's cruising it by you, and outside of the one disaster game against, I forget who it was. Who was the game where Jake Fraley hit the grand slam and then they ended up losing in extras? Because that was the only bad game that he had, and most of those were unearned, I know, kind of by his own throwing error. But, I will say this, Graham Ashcraft is probably top 4 in most confident guys I have on this Reds pitching staff right now, probably top 3. So good for him. It's been an awesome season to watch, and I hope it continues because he's earned it. I wonder. I know he said in the post-game interview yesterday he's happy to work in whatever role the Reds have for him.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he personally enjoys this role more than the starter role. I know it probably affects money more, and if you take away the money thing out of it, I wonder if he's feeling a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable in this role, opposed to starting every 5th day, having to go 6, and having that mental taxation that involves. Maybe it frees him up a little bit. I don't know, but it's really, really cool to watch.
Yeah, this is just pure negligence. But Graham Ashcraft enters arbitration for the next 3 years after this season. Is it better to be a slightly below average starting pitcher, or to be a great reliever in that situation? I don't know. I would imagine it's pretty close. Obviously, the money is drastically different between a star reliever and a star starting pitcher, but he was struggling as a starting pitcher, and in a Reds organization that we even talked about yesterday with Chase Petty just after his debut, asking where a lot of guys fit with the depth we have in this organization. Maybe he thinks long-term security-wise, he's much more secure here, making more money in a longer period of time. But then if he was, rolling the dice through all of these years as a starting pitcher in a loaded organization. So even though the contracts are smaller, maybe for a guy like Graham Ashcraft, this makes a lot more sense, even monetarily, to switch to a role like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point because it's one of those two where you want. Look, I'm sure if you ask him, he wants to be a starting pitcher, but I think
sure.
What I always enjoy is watching athletes who have a little self-awareness as well, where they're not just accepting the fact that, okay, I can't start, for a Major League Baseball club, but at the same time, I also want to be a part of a Major League Baseball club and willing to adjust and take on a new role and not look at it as being demoted. And actually, he's taken on this role and mastered it at this point, at least 1 month and some change into the season. And with how hard he was throwing yesterday, and we saw, Luis May coming in after him later in the game. Imagine for opposing batters having to face Hunter Greene for 6-7 innings, and then you have to face obviously a Graham Ashcraft throwing as hard as he does, and then Luis May possibly coming in and having to face him. This pitching staff, we knew it was going to be the strength coming in. We just didn't know how strong it was going to be, but it has been fun watching all the pieces kind of fall in. Andrew Abbott, he walked more batters than you'd like yesterday, but again, only giving up 1 run as a whole for the pitching staff. Up and down from the rotation to the bullpen, everyone has kind of embraced their roles and really done a great job. Again, when we talk about the beginning of the season too, we weren't even able to give this pitching staff the love that they deserve right away because of how bad the offense was early on. But the pitching staff has not regressed. It's been the strong point from beginning to end, and seems like there's some staying power with it. I'm not sure how you guys feel. Do you guys feel like this pitching, it's not them pitching above themselves, like this is who they are and who we can count on the rest of the way?
I think that's the positive side of the expectations versus reality conversation we had with the bats yesterday and that we've really had over the last few weeks is there's just really no level of confidence in Reds fandom that this team's a top 10 batting team, even though we've seen it now over a long, collection of games because we didn't have any expectation that they'd be close to that beforehand. Even though the pitching and the bullpen have been phenomenal so far this year, I think a lot of people thought that they could be.
Yeah.
So there's a lot bigger reason to believe in that having staying power moving forward. Now, if you can match the two up and be great at both, that's when you're talking about competing for the playoffs and winning championships. I don't know if we're there yet, but we certainly have a pitching staff top to bottom, bullpen included, that I really, really believe in.
as long as the pitching staff's healthy, I think they're this good.
Yeah.
I don't think, like I've said, water finds its level now in 3 straight shows. Water has found its level with the pitching staff. I think that this is how good they are. You're going to have 3 to 4 elite starts a week, and maybe that 5th start might not go the way you want. Maybe you'll have 2 starts that don't go the way you want. But the bullpen has been as consistent as I could have possibly hoped for and asked for. And I don't think they're going to slow down barring injury. If injuries come, then it changes everything. But as long as these guys are healthy right now, I don't think that the Reds are going to slow down when it comes to their pitching staff. It's been awesome. It's been absolutely incredible. And when we talk about before the season, what are you most confident in? We all said the pitching staff. We all said, at least Jacob and I think we both thought the bullpen was going to be pretty darn good. And they have been. Like, they've lived up to it. They've stayed with it. And nobody has had multiple bad starts. I mean, Nick Martinez has been the worst starter, and even then, I wouldn't say his starts have been woeful. They just, they haven't been great. And he's had back-to-back really good starts. So who knows? I think this is for the long term. I think you can go the next several months here as long as they're healthy and be as dominant as they are right now.
I don't think anyone's acting like we're 17-15 without this pitching staff. It's certainly been the catalyst that's gotten us to the point where we're 2 games above 500 in the first week of May.
Yeah.
But we also have to think about the fact that there's 3 1-0 losses in there. There's 2, maybe 3 more games where the other team didn't score more than 3 or 4 runs mixed in there. So even the fact that we are 17-15, how many more of those games? Even the first game of the doubleheader, where Alexis Diaz blows up 5 runs in the top of the 9th, but your starting pitcher got you 1 run in the bullpen all the way until the end. And then the second game into last night, where what was the number for the bullpen? 20-something straight batters retired?
Yeah.
This pitching staff is giving you a chance to win damn near every game you play.
Yep.
If we just win the games that major league teams usually win with pitching output, we're talking about a team that's right now that's mid-20s in wins. And I think when we talk about expectation for the end of this month, we're going to want to be close to 30, something wrong. So how different is it if you get those, 3, 4 wins where the other team's scoring 1, 2 runs, when this offense hopefully does find its level? And I know it's been great right now, but it's been so inconsistent, and those great numbers are driven by a couple blowouts. I don't think any of us are uber confident in how the offense is playing right now, top to bottom. No. When it gets more consistent and they're able to score on a more consistent basis, maybe it's not 20 runs and 0 runs, maybe it's 5 runs a game.
Yeah.
4 runs a game. This team's going to be able to go on a run. And I don't know if they will, because they make a lot of mistakes and they kick themselves a lot and they cause themselves to lose quite a bit, but they're going to have an opportunity to go on runs this season, to stack wins, because the pitching staff gives them a chance. And you're just going to have to ask for the bats to be good enough when you're given that chance to push you over the edge.
If you're going to score 4 runs a game, and I know technically our numbers say we are doing that.
Which we're just not.
If you score 4 runs a game with the pitching staff that we have right now, you're not going to lose many games.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times teams, fans like to look back and count the 1-run losses and say, man, if we could just have a couple of those back. That's not always a good indicator sometimes. Like, we feel like, oh, you're so close because of a couple of these 1-run losses. I don't really like looking at those as a way to say, if you got to have a couple of those back. I like what you guys just said about look at those games where the pitching staff held opponents to 2 or less runs. And there's been quite a few of those games throughout this, including, as you mentioned, Jake, those 3 straight 1-0 losses that they had. Those are the games that I look back and say, man, offensively, we know that we know this offense is not as good as what it's been a month and some change in. We also know it's not as bad as what it was during that stretch where they were losing 1-0 for 3 straight games. Right. Somewhere in the middle, this pitching staff is going to put them in position, as you said, to win a lot of games as long as this offense, it doesn't have to be great. It doesn't even have to be what it's been up to this point, but it does have to produce. It just can't get shut out. You can't have 1-2 run performances. Just be average, and this pitching staff is going to put you in a position to win a lot of games. You need 15 wins a month to get to that sweet spot of 90. We said 90 is that number, right? That safe number to make the postseason. Is it 90?
Yeah, I would imagine.
15 wins a month, not a season. That'd be kind of bad. 15 wins a month, and they're off to a good start. They get a win on the 1st of May. We'll see if they can keep it going here tonight. Let's stick with the Reds. We'll step away for a few. We'll do a little buy or sell Reds edition when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back off the bench. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. Austin Mock with The Athletic. He'll join us. He covers college football and the NFL. He'll join us coming up here in just about over 20 minutes or so. He put out a grade for every NFL draft coming out of last weekend, every NFL team's draft coming out of last weekend, of course. So we'll talk AFC North and the Cincinnati Bengals with him coming up here around the corner. We'll stick with the Reds, though, for now. Buy or sell Reds edition, and we'll go ahead and get started with this one. Guys, Spencer Steer's kind of on an interesting little run right now. I feel like we keep putting him off to the side and acting as if, okay, this guy, he's just not going to figure it out. We've just put him in the corner over here because of this injury that we don't know what the solution to this injury getting better is. We don't know if he'll even play, in the field at all throughout I have no clue what's going on with Spencer Steer at this point. But buy or sell Spencer Steer starting to get hot at the plate right now, buy or sell?
I hope. I'll buy it because we saw the home run yesterday, and I think you got to have optimism with some of these guys when you see them start to try to break through. 2 hits, 3 at-bats yesterday, hitting 189 now. I know average isn't everything, but it certainly seems like he's starting to inch his way back to the Spencer Steer we know and love. It's taken a while, but man, this is the highest average he's had for the entire year. He hasn't had an average this high all year. So the fact that he's been able to scratch and claw up to 189, I mean, it is a fight. When you start the season, what was he, 1 for 20-something out of the gate? So he's scratching and clawing and probably will be for another couple months. But it's a massive, massive step forward from the version of Spencer Steer we were watching to start this year. Still a long ways to go, but I'm buying he's on his way there.
He has 8 hits in his last 28 at-bats, 5 runs scored, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 2 walks. That hasn't really struck out a ton during that stretch. He's hitting .286 with a .355 OBP and slugging .500 in his last 7 games, for what that's worth. I know those last 7 games have been against opponents that aren't great. I don't care at this very second. If you're going to hit like this, hopefully that gives you enough momentum to carry it in against decent opponents. So am I going to buy it? Yeah, I'm going to buy it for right now because statistically he's doing it. It's just been a slow process, and I'm hoping he's starting to feel good. Hopefully he's able to start playing the field and able to contribute in different ways to this team. Because he's been unable to contribute as the DH. He's obviously been unable to contribute as a fielder. Hopefully one of those 2 things is able to mesh with him if he's going to be a Cincinnati Red. If you're going to be up here, we said that yesterday, if you're going to be up on the Reds organization, you have to be able to contribute something. I'm hoping this is the start of his contribution to the team. Over his last 15 games, 60 at-bats, 13 hits. Again, those 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, hitting .220, 300 OBP. Not good, but certainly better than his season totals. So as long as he continues on this trend, we should be good eventually, and hopefully he comes back. Because we said it yesterday, too. Matt McLain has not been very, very good this season. Spencer Steer hasn't been very good this season. Up until recently, Elly, I would say, hadn't played up to his numbers. Now, obviously, Elly's playing a lot better. I think that if you start getting contributions from the guys that you're supposed to have that we all thought would contribute before the year, then the Reds are just going to be in a really, really good spot. They have guys right now that we mention every show that weren't supposed to be as good as they are right now, and they're contributing and carrying the load of the Spencer Steers, of the Jeimer Candelarios, of the Matt McLains. The back half of this lineup's carrying that weight, and hopefully the Spencer Steers and Matt McLains can just inch a little bit better just to lighten the load for Jose Trevino, Austin Wynns, Gavin Lux, and Austin Hayes. Hopefully just a little bit they lighten that load, because as of right now, they haven't been helping, and arguably they've been hurting the team. Matt McLain does offer something with the glove that Spencer Steer doesn't, and that Jeimer Candelario didn't. But again, offensively, they're just not there yet. I'm hoping Spencer Steer is able to use this as fuel and take something into a positive step in the coming series, and hopefully the next coming series, the next couple of them.
Yeah, Spencer Steer, as far as him heating up, and as far as me starting to feel more confident with him with the bat in his hand, I am starting to feel more confident because we've started to see it as of late. I know when you look at the average for where he is on the season, I know this sounds weird, but I don't really care what he did the first couple weeks of the season because it's in the past. It's kind of who he is as a hitter right now. And you look at those numbers that Elliot talked about, he is starting to produce a lot more in these smaller sample size of games or at bats over the last, week or two. But, you go and look at it, even in a smaller sample size, over his last 10 games, he has 5 multi-hit games in his last, of the last 10 games, he has 5 multi-hit games. He's hitting 7 of his last 10. You talked about the couple home runs and the RBIs and, him not really striking out at a high rate, which is good too. He's getting a lot more quality at bats. And if he really does start to heat up and start to contribute as well, it would be nice if he's doing it. If we get Austin Hayes back and you still get the production from Lux and Trevino and some of the other guys, and then Elly De La Cruz and Matt McLain turns it around, then all of a sudden this lineup, it's not the sexiest lineup from a name standpoint, from name brand standpoint, but it's a pretty dangerous lineup up and down if you are starting to get production from a lot of those guys. I was shocked to see that Spencer Steer's offensive production has actually increased over the last couple of weeks, especially with the 5 multi-hit games in the last 10. That kind of caught my attention because it's one thing just to, obviously put the ball in play, get a hit here or there, but he's starting to hit consistently, which I think is a good sign, and I'm starting to feel more confident in his ability to start making some plays with the bat in his hand. So we'll see if he can sustain that and keep it up.
And he's been my I've tried to fight the Spencer Steer the war. I've tried to be in his camp. I've tried to but boy, this season's just been a massive disappointment. If you had to rank some of the bigger disappointments on this Reds team through a month of baseball, Spencer Steer's at the top of the list. And I don't fault Spencer Steer as the issue.
Right.
I don't think he was ever healthy enough to play this season, and I think he himself has been toughing that out. He's been trying to be available when other guys on this team, who I will not name, they don't make themselves available. And whether that's their fault or not, Spencer Steer tries to make himself available. The issue is his availability this year. It wasn't good enough to be on the roster. Hopefully, again, he's fighting through this, and he's going to be able to contribute long term this season. I don't want this to be, we're going to fight, and then it's you break the wheels off, and you have to go back on the IL for God knows how long. I'm hoping this is a lasting thing because they haven't put him on the IL. I thought they were going to do that a month ago. They refused to do it. So now if he's up, he's got to contribute, and hopefully this is the start of it.
Speaking of the IL, buy or sell, us getting news relatively soon that Austin Hayes is going on the IL. Buy or sell?
Define soon, because I'll sell this weekend.
Yeah.
I think he sits on the bench through the National Series, and then we probably hear something Monday, whether that's he's in the lineup or he's going to IL. That would be my guess. I think they burn a roster spot for an entire series.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that they're not going to send him down anytime soon. I'm gonna say that. So I'll sell it. I'm gonna say they're not going to send him down because I think the organization knows at this point what that means. I mean, it's just such a bad look. And obviously, you treat the health of the player first. I'm not saying they wouldn't do that. If he's hurt, he's obviously going to go to the IL. I just think if it's not as serious as I think it might be, then they're going to keep him up for as long as possible. They're going to use him off the bench. They're going to use him as a DH, and that's the role they're going to try. They're going to try to scrape together wins or enough juice out of him to where the Reds are competitive still with him in the lineup. I think they're going to do their best to avoid that IL stint. So I'm going to say they're going to postpone this as long as humanly possible, maybe not even the next few weeks.
Yeah, again, it's a mild hamstring issue right now. Again, he was obviously taking ground balls, and he was running yesterday before the game and working out. There just hasn't been an update as far as how that workout went. Did he still feel some mild discomfort? Was there any discomfort at all? For all we know, the lineup can come out for tonight here shortly, and he be back in the lineup, and all of this doesn't matter at this point. But I will say, with the way the Reds are hitting right now, I think that if the Reds make it through this National Series where they're still getting very solid offensive production, I feel like it's disappointing to not have him in the lineup. It'd be disappointing to put him on the IL. But I feel like right now, if you're going to capitalize on a time where you don't have to desperately kind of force him out there and use him in different roles where he's not completely healthy, I think that if the Reds hit the ball well against the Nationals in this series and we haven't got an update in the next couple of days regarding Austin Hayes, I wouldn't mind an IL stint to make sure that he is 100% healthy when he comes back versus the Spencer Steer usage where he's continuously going out there and playing hurt and it's impacting his performance out on the field. Spencer Steer, there's a reason that a lot of these guys who were banged up coming into the year were kind of forced to play is because they just had no other options. Right. They had no depth offensively. Right now, the Reds are pretty solid offensively. Whether they can sustain it, that's the big question that we've been talking about the last couple of days. But I just don't feel the urgency to force Austin Hayes out there if he doesn't have to be at this point. If the Reds were struggling offensively and we were really worried about that, hey, any of Austin Hayes is better than no Austin Hayes, then I'd be all for it. But hopefully it's not the case. Hopefully he's in the lineup and this topic is just washed out. We don't have to worry about it moving forward.
I know I'm not a Will Benson believer, but I keep throwing the name out there that Will Benson is still raking down in Triple. I think he hit another home run yesterday.
Yeah.
Every time I speak Will Benson's name, he hits a home run down in Louisville. You have that option available to you. I don't know when the Reds are going to use it again. I know it didn't work the first time he came up, but I feel like that was such a small sample size that you can't accurately judge a player's performance on what he's going to be on a 4 strikeout game in San Francisco. I'm utterly shocked they haven't brought him back up yet. I don't know why. I don't know what that reason is. But if there's even a sense that Austin Hayes is not going to be at 80%, 90%, you put him on IL like Kinner just said, and you bring up Will Benson. You have to.
Yeah, and I think that's the question that they had with Hayes was, do we have another option? And that 4 strikeout game, if that's your decision on Will Benson, DFA him.
Yeah.
What's he hitting home runs in AAA for if you made
I
your
agree.
mind up on him 2 months ago because he struck out 4 times in San Francisco, right? What more could he do to earn a spot in the Major League roster where the outfielders that you trust to play at a high level are either hurt or can't play in the outfield yet because they're faking not being hurt? I mean, he has to be your best option when it comes to healthy bodies right now.
Yeah, there's no logic behind it. I'm hoping, because no disrespect to Blake Dunn, but you actively don't have your best roster up here.
Correct.
If Will Benson's not here, and you choose Blake Dunn. Blake Dunn's done an admirable job, but nobody's under the illusion that Blake Dunn is going to be better than Will Benson at the plate.
Yeah, during the broadcast yesterday, Tommy Thrawn, the Cowboy, were talking about Jose Barrero. It reminds me a little bit of what we're talking about with Will Benson. Will Benson comes up and doesn't produce. You send him to the minors, and he has humongous numbers. That was one of the problems with Barrero, and they were talking about that in the broadcast yesterday. Same thing. I know he only played in yesterday's game, but 0 for 3, didn't produce, but he was crushing it down in AAA for the Cardinals. That's one reason they felt confident calling him up. But just like Barrero's run with the Reds, would kill it in the minor leagues, get called up, wouldn't produce. It's kind of what we're seeing, obviously, a little bit with Will Benson, but hopefully if he does get called up, he can pick up where he's left off at AAA and start crushing the ball again here for the Reds. All right, off the bench, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. When we come back, another quick one involving Jeimer Candelario. Buy or sell, have we seen the last of Jeimer Candelario with the Cincinnati Reds? Plus, what is up with the uptick in attendance across Major League Baseball 1 month in? We'll discuss all of that before we turn our attention towards the NFL. More off the bench when we come back. All right, and we are back off the bench. We're going to be joined by Austin Mott coming up here with The Athletic. We'll talk all things NFL draft as far as the grades that he put out. Wasn't a friendly grade for the Cincinnati Bengals, but we'll take a look at that grade and the rest of the AFC North and some of the Bengals' top rivals out there, including the Bills, the Chiefs, and some of the others. So we have that coming up for you here, just over 10 minutes or so. But we had some super chats, right, Elliot, that came in?
We do. We do have a super chat from Justin Edgel, $1.99. He's been a member for 19 months. 19 months.
Not quite 20, but just one more than 18.
Good analysis, Jacob. Thank you.
Can't argue that.
Colin, that was good. That was good.
Thanks.
Colin Will, member for 10 months.
2 less than 12, 3 more than 7.
Reds are making the playoffs this year, says Colin Will.
Very cool.
And we have a Nate, member for 14 months.
Double up 7 right there.
Noelvi Marte started off like 1 for 12. Thankfully, we didn't send him down. Parentheses, well, kinda.
We did send
him down. Bring Benson back up. Let him cook. Also, happy Friday, everyone. It's a great day. Derby tomorrow. Beers tonight.
Look, our chat, and we can all play this. Well, Benson gave me one him up because he's a better outfielder, yada, yada, yada. we all want him up so we can bet over 4.5 pitches per at bat.
That's what you guys did.
We're all on the same page here at Chatterbox Sports and our wonderful members from our game streams last year. It was a cash cow, and we're missing out through 1 month this year not having over 4.5 pitches per at bat in Will Benson because he'll strike out, but he'll foul 2 of them off first.
That's right.
Continuing on quickly with our buy or sell for the Cincinnati Reds. Buy or sell, Jeimer Candelario has taken his last at-bat with the Cincinnati Reds. Buy or sell?
I think if he takes another at-bat with the Cincinnati Reds, something has happened to somebody. So whether that's an injury or someone starts playing poorly, I'll buy it because I think he's not going to be an everyday player, and I think they'll figure something out if he's not going to play every day, whether that is a DFA, whether they find somewhere to dump some of this contract. I don't know what the likelihood of that would be, but I have a feeling that he's on the IL right now for a reason, and that reason is that there's no use that they see of having him sit in the dugout. So I would imagine if Noelvi Marte keeps playing like this, if Spencer Steer can fight his way back to be healthy and be close to an everyday first baseman, if CES can come back and be right in that mix as well at first base, I think optimistically we don't see Jeimer Candelario again, so I'll buy it.
I'm going to sell it, and only because I know my Cincinnati Reds.
Correct.
And they're not going to put all that money on the books.
No,
they're not just going to waste $40 million plus. So Jeimer Candelario is going to swing again for the Reds. I don't know when it's going to be. Yeah, I don't know when it's going to be. I'd push that down the line as far as you can. Hopefully Noelvi can stay healthy. And Spencer Steer starts to become healthy, and we can avoid that altogether. But I know my Cincinnati Reds, and they're not eating that contract. He will be back.
If everything goes according to plan this year, is there an ideal lineup with Jeimer Candelario in it?
No.
Right.
No. Jeimer Candelario is not good enough to be on the Reds.
If he's starting games for the Reds this year, it's strictly a money proposition.
Correct. There is no player on the Reds right now actively that is currently worse than Jeimer Candelario.
Why'd you say Reds?
You mean anywhere?
He's the worst hitter in baseball.
Yeah, you're right. There's just not a player anywhere that's been worse than him. So I don't know why you would even consider bringing him back. It's gone terribly wrong. They missed, they swung, and they struck out. I commend them for their effort of trying to bring somebody that had success in his career, a veteran guy, a veteran bat. I respect their effort. It wasn't good enough. And I'm hoping this doesn't stop them from doing it in the future.
Correct.
Because they're 0 for 2 and pretty bad misses on Mike Moustakas and Jeimer Candelario recently. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what they got to do. It's been a colossal train wreck. And they need to find somebody that's a little bit more consistent for around that same number. I think they could have done it this past offseason if they didn't spend $21 million on Nick Martinez, but they did. So,
yeah, my only thing with Candelario is, that injury, I hope it's a real injury, and I hope that and what I mean by that is like, again, we've talked about it all week. He's been horrific. That injury could be why he was horrific. So if that injury is truly real and he heals up and he can return to form, then great. There's an opportunity down the road that they can use him. But as you guys said, if Noelvi Marte is playing the way he's supposed to, if Spencer Steer's bat really is starting to heat up, and obviously Austin Hayes is healthy in Lux, and obviously, there's really just no spots for him anywhere at this point. And that's a thing to consider as well. But if they truly believe that his production was lacking due to this injury, then he'll probably be back. But if they just use this injury as an excuse just to get him off to the side, to take the bat out of his hand, and he's a veteran player, and you don't just want him sitting in the clubhouse, in the dugout every game, I can understand that as well. So I don't know what to make of this. It is unfortunate, but yeah, you're right. It's two close contracts of Moustakas and him where it just has not been money well spent. The intent was there. I loved the Moustakas signing when it happened. I don't know about love, but I was a fan of the Moustakas signing when it happened. I was a fan of the Candelario signing when it happened. It just hasn't worked, and that's the unfortunate part. When the Reds do finally get aggressive and they try to go get a player that they're willing to spend a little chunk of change on, it's backfired, and that's not a good thing, because then it's like they get a little gun shy when it does come to pulling the trigger to go spend some money on players, where they get a little nervous. Like, you would like it to where you spend money on players and it works, and you can look at them and say, see, you get what you pay for. Well, unfortunately, they have not gotten what they've paid for with a couple of these bigger players. And then you get the scrap heap guys like the Gavin Luxes and the Austin Hayes of the world, where they just throw a couple million at them, and then they come in and give you the 15 to 20 mil of production. So we'll
now
see
the
what
Reds
happens.
get to say C.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
we're not paying anybody. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Get crawled, baby. Get crawled.
I disagree with you, Kinner, when you say that you hope it's an injury, only because the injury plays into the player as well. I don't crush guys for getting hurt. I don't like to do that, but
Yeah.
Mike Moustakas was never healthy, and he was bad. Jeimer Candelario, never healthy, and he was bad. Nick Senzel, never healthy ever.
Yeah.
And usually he was bad. So, like, it's a part of it. And the Reds should have known better, unfortunately, and they didn't. Back-to-back times. So hopefully we learn from our mistakes and start to get somebody who can play baseball.
I think the issue is that we're seeing now is back-to-back misses at virtually the same player.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting a power bat doubles hitter that plays third base, and is that just where we're going to live all the time and just hope one of these guys works out, one of these, upper mid-level free agents works out? Not a super high likelihood that it does, and that's why we're seeing, back-to-back misses here. So it's frustrating, but I would certainly rather, claw my eyes out a year into a contract saying it's terrible than be upset every single summer that the Reds never try. I mean,
Yeah.
I at least got a few months after the Candelario signing of saying, see, the Reds have a pulse, and they're showing life, and they're trying here. So that counts for something.
All right, off the bench, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. Of course, we spent the first hour of the show diving into all things Cincinnati Reds. The Reds will be back in action tonight. Hunter Greene on the mound, game 1 against the Nationals. They avoid that disaster of potentially dropping 3 of 4 against the Cardinals. They end up with the split. Best case scenario, considering how bad it got a couple days ago. Still a couple games above 500. They still have that momentum. They were swinging a hot bat yesterday. We'll see if they can keep it going here tonight. A 6:10 first pitch with Hunter Greene on the mound in game 1 against the Nationals. The NFL draft was last weekend, of course, and that dominated a lot of the headlines and talking points throughout the week. We talked about the Cincinnati Bengals and how they performed in their draft throughout this week as well, and we're going to continue on. We'll dissect the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals, Bills, Chiefs, and others, as Austin Mock with The Athletic, who covers college football and the NFL. He's going to join us when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back off the bench. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ring, and Jacob Tissett with you here. Spent a lot of time on the Reds to open up the show, of course. They get the split with the Cardinals. They turned their attention towards the Nationals with Hunter Greene on the mound later on tonight at Great American Ballpark. But now we're turning our attention towards the NFL, Cincinnati Bengals, AFC North, and more. Austin Mock with The Athletic, awesome enough to give us some time today. Austin, we appreciate your time. Happy Friday. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Look, obviously this draft was very unique. We talked before the draft that I just felt like the build to this draft wasn't as hyped as it usually is, which is pretty ironic because it was probably one of the most talked about drafts in recent memory, at least. I mean, it was probably one of the most talked about drafts, especially in the back end of it. Obviously, Shedeur having a lot to do with that. But can you think of a more polarizing draft than the one that we just experienced this past weekend?
No, definitely not in recent memory. Like, this one was, I think, head and shoulders in terms of like interest, engagement, whatever you want to label it as. I think it helps because the like picks 4 or 5 through like 20, you could have seen a wide range. All those players in that range were kind of lumped together there. But yeah, Shedeur kind of stole the attention or the headlines, I guess, with his drop. So yeah, there was just a lot of uncertainty. And then you add in a high-profile player like Shedeur dropping like he did, and you're going to get a draft that people can't really stop talking about.
I know you graded the entire league, but as a show based in Cincinnati, want to get some outside opinions on what the Bengals were able to do. Out of the 32 teams, you had the Bengals coming in at 25th with a D- on the draft. I think the Bengals have been a class specifically with a big discrepancy in what they've been graded. What impacted your grade specifically so heavily to give the Bengals a D-?
Yeah, so my grades are comprised of like 3 things here. I use our consensus board from the draft experts that we compile at The Athletic, and I compare that to where that player ranks compared to where they're drafted. That's one part of it. The other part of it is their position drafted, and then there's also trades, which wasn't as big of an issue here for Cincinnati.
Never is.
But so the big thing for them was position value. I thought was fine. They're in a unique spot that this also doesn't take in team fit outside of the quarterback position. So I just want to throw that out there as well. But they need a defense, right? Like that's what we saw that last year. They pretty much addressed that. 3 of the top 4 picks being on that side of the ball. But it just was one of those things where I think there wasn't a ton of options at their picks. And then on top of that, they reached for, I thought Demetrius Knight was a reach compared to our consensus board.
Yep.
And that's a big factor into, why they graded as low as they did. I think they did an all right job of kind of where they needed to go, but I think it was just more of definitely the defense side of the ball, best player available, maybe go with that. And maybe they have Knight a lot higher than our consensus board, but based on our consensus board, that pick hurt them and probably tanked their draft grade for me.
You mentioned it right there. They might have had players such as Demetrius Knight, maybe even a Dylan Fairchild, much higher than the consensus boards. How much do these rankings take into account a team like the Bengals in their championship window right now, trying to draft players that can contribute immediately, as opposed to maybe players that are ranked higher but are more based on upside?
Yeah, so that's where it kind of gets difficult, and it's where everything these are. I don't want to say like my grades are better than anybody's or anything. Probably look at the composite of grades and you'll see where your team probably landed there. But that's not really factored in as much. I guess you could say that the consensus board that we're using is factoring that in a little bit, just from the standpoint of like, hey, I would assume from a draft grading perspective, you probably take a drop if you're not ready to play year one. Depending on the position, obviously, quarterback might be a little bit different. And just like it's different in every aspect when it comes to the NFL. But so I wouldn't say it's factored in that much, maybe a little bit on the consensus board side, but it's one of those tough things when you're a GM. That's why it's a very difficult job. And, there's only 32 of them is like, you have to balance that. And, hey, we're passing on a player that might be a stud in year 2, but we need success or, production in year 1. It's, you kind of do have to balance that. So that's where I do kind of think there's like a range of where these draft grades should be, and where like kind of taking a couple of people that you respect and seeing where they draft or grade the Bengals is probably the best way to get a real feel of probably where they land. with this draft.
Sorry. You mentioned that the Bengals reached in the middle rounds of the draft, which negatively affected your grade, but probably the most contentious pick for Bengals fans was the first-round pick of Shamar Stewart, which was probably one of their closest picks to consensus boards. What is your take on the Shamar Stewart pick at 17? Was it as big of a risk as some Bengals fans are making it out to be?
I think it kind of goes back into production. I don't know if Stewart is going to be ready right away. He's one of the more raw players. He was more of the guy in college with he got a lot of pressures but didn't necessarily finish. And whether that's a technique development thing that Cincinnati is going to have to work through, who knows? But he was getting to the quarterback. He was forcing throws and forcing the quarterback to get rid of the ball, which is a pretty good predictor of success there. He's super athletic, so it's one of those things that that box is checked. You don't ever have to worry about that. It's just whether he can kind of put it all together. What that means for year one, I don't know. I think maybe it's more of a third down situational thing, where he's always on the field in that way. But I think his development over the next 5 months or so, 4 months, is going to be paramount to how much impact he has on those early downs with his ability to defend the run and not just be a situational only pass rusher.
Outside of Cincinnati, obviously the drafts across the rest of the division really impact the Bengals. The Browns, I saw, had your best grade at an A+. The Ravens and Steelers always seem to draft well. Ravens adding great value with Malachi Starks in the first round. Steelers getting Derek Harmon, who Bengals fans here wanted pretty bad at 17. Which player added, not even just in the first round, but throughout the whole drafts within the AFC North, you think Bengals fans should be most afraid of going into next season?
Oh, that's a tough one. I want to say Mason Graham with the Browns, but I've been making this joke about the Browns with, even if they give up 17 points a game, they're going to be the inverse of what the Bengals were last year, and that the offense, it doesn't matter if you give up 17 points a game when you can't score 17. So I'd say he's probably the impact guy. He obviously, it's kind of a cop out. He was the highest ranked player, but he's just a guy that I think. I like it when guys go into a situation where there's already a star impacting his position. Obviously, Myles Garrett is on the edge. Mason Graham is going to be an interior defensive lineman, but it's not hey, here's the pressure of you got to go in and just start destroying stuff. He's going to have that benefit of the opposing offense is going to be factoring in where Myles Garrett is way before he is, so that kind of alleviates some pressure for him. And he was just super disruptive at Michigan for basically 3 years. Started as a true freshman at the end of the year. They were obviously very successful when he was there. I think he's just that interior guy that can play the run, stop the pass, and with Myles Garrett on the edge too. I just love that tandem and what that defensive line can do to opposing offenses within a division.
When you talk about Cleveland, obviously with Mason Graham, obviously they take with that fifth pick, with the Jaguars pick. Were you surprised that they traded back from 2, and did they get the better of that deal? Obviously, everyone thought for sure who they were going to go with at number 2. They opted not to, and they still get an impact player in Mason Graham there at number 5. Were you surprised that they traded that pick, and did they make the right decision to move from 2 to 5?
Yeah, if you would have asked me probably 2 months ago, I wouldn't have been that surprised. But we didn't hear any rumors of that, until I felt like it was 20 minutes before the draft started. So yeah, it definitely caught me by surprise because they were able to keep that under wraps. But yeah, I think they won the trade. That's why, honestly, I didn't think the rest of their draft was very good. I didn't really understand their process, but because they gained so much value, the way that I did the numbers in that trade, I think they got the equivalent of basically a top half of the first round draft pick with that trade with Jacksonville. So I think they won that. I think it's one of those things too. Travis Hunter, I'm not going to say he's overrated. He's a unicorn, but I think there probably is some concern if he can be a high level cornerback and wide receiver. So does that, some teams probably had his value a little bit lower. And yeah, Mason Graham was a top 5 player on the consensus board, and they got him at pick number 5. You cannot complain about that when you are adding in a, first round pick next year. So I think I think in that scope, they traded the pick and then drafted Graham. I thought it was good. The rest of the draft, I was a little confused about. I think they could have had even a higher distance away from my number 2 team because I still think that trade won them the draft, but I didn't love the rest of what they did.
The Dylan Gabriel pick, I think, kind of caught a lot of people's attention, and I think it even caught more people's attention when you took another quarterback later, and not just any quarterback, a quarterback that anyone thought could fall from, you'd be taken in the first round or second. A lot of drama as far as like, okay, was that an ownership decision that kind of stepped into the Haslam step in and forced them to take, obviously Shedeur so late. I did see that the general manager for the Browns came out and Andrew Berry said, like, look, they obviously didn't plan on taking 2 quarterbacks in this draft, but when you have a first-round caliber quarterback that drops to the 5th round, he looked at that as very good value. If the Browns don't take Shedeur in the 5th round or with that pick, how are you evaluating their draft out of the AFC North at this point?
Yeah, I think it's still pretty good. Like I said, that trade really won them in my, like, that really was what put them over the top, and it was such a, I think from the way that I did my process was it was going to be hard for them not to be in like the top 5 because of how much value is gained there. But yeah, Shedeur, I think it kind of saved that. The Gabriel one really confused me because outside of like, the fireworks and extracurriculars with Shedeur Sanders of, everything that comes with drafting him, like the knock on him was as a prospect, strictly on-field talent here was, really the arm strength and a little bit of his mobility. And then I just thought Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd, just like he's similarly that type of player. And so I think they kind of counteract each other here with Gabriel and Sanders. Like, hey, you get a quote unquote steal in Sanders in the 5th, but the reach for Gabriel kind of like offset that to like a neutral play there for the Browns. So I didn't that, you had 2 running backs. I don't know if like there weren't enough premium positions there that I wish they would have went to the higher premium positions. But 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, it's just a little concerning for me of like what they did after, the first night where I think they kind of stole the show.
You can be a little harsher on the Browns. This guy's a Bengals fan that you're talking to. So when you take Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, I'm surprised they didn't run it back with another quarterback after that. So they can take 6 quarterbacks, 7 quarterbacks. Once they reach that magic number of 100 within the last 3 decades, maybe then it'll start to work in Cleveland. Quick couple silly questions for you. Number 1.
No offense.
No, of course, well, I don't have to say no offense because you're no longer a Browns fan. You're a Bengals fan now.
Yeah, there you go.
Your last name did you become a draft analyst because of your last name, or did you change your last name because you like doing mock drafts?
I was born with it. That's where I was. Honestly, I didn't do much draft stuff until a couple years ago. So that was, and I honestly didn't really have, like, I wasn't a draft enthusiast even. I was more of just like, all right, let's see who the players are. Like, I wasn't doing any pre-draft, work and looking at prospects and stuff like that. So yeah, I just have that name fittingly. It's interesting because I'm like, okay, how can I tie my name into if I do a mock draft or anything like that? But it just ends up being 2 mocks, so it doesn't really work. Like mock draft, it gets a little confusing there. But yeah, I do have the born with the name. I don't know if I was destined to be doing some NFL draft work when I was born, but yeah, here we are with the fitting name.
It's a perfect fit. You mentioned the Bengals defense, addressing that defense, and we've had this debate in the show now for about a week. How important does Trey Hendrickson, and I know when you do your grades, you're just grading what happens in the draft. You're not looking at the external factors probably. But when you look at Trey Hendrickson and how uncertain that situation is, let's say the Bengals get a deal done, does that drastically enhance what the Bengals did this draft or not really?
No, I kind of try to, outside of the quarterback position, I try to extract that and make it just strictly like, hey, here's the future. Because again, outside, even if they get a deal done, Trey Hendrickson, is up there in age. You don't know what his production is going to be in 2 years or 3 years from now, and then injuries on top of that. So it's more of like, hey, what's this class going to do for you over the next 4 to 5 years on the length of their rookie contract. So the Hendrickson deal is not a huge factor into this. It's like that team fit, team need thing is not really factored in here outside of the quarterback position. So that would be more of a subjective viewpoint from my end.
My last question for you. Out of all the falls in the draft, Shedeur Sanders fell, God knows, to 144. You have Mike Greene falling later than people thought. Out of all the falls in the 2025 draft, who do you think is going to be the regret player? Who's going to come out, play their ass off, and make a statement in the NFL and make whatever X amount of teams regret not taking them when they were supposed to be taken?
Yeah, I'd have to go with Will Johnson because like obviously there's a knee injury and there was the report. I can't remember who reported it, that it was like the second contract is what people were worried about, or teams were worried about with Johnson and his knee. Like if he's fully healthy, this guy was a top 10 pick. Going into this draft process, you could even argue maybe that he was going to be at a top 5 pick. So if he's able to be healthy. I don't know about his long-term output there because there's some worries there. I think he's a player that, I think he has the benefit of being a cornerback who's not 100% relying on his athletic ability. He's not like a super freak in that way. He's very good with, a ball hawk, if you will, which will help his value. I don't want to say like Diggs from the Cowboys, but similar in that, like, he's not solely like, hey, once my legs go, I'm totally cooked there. So I'll go with Will Johnson. Just I think his fall wasn't a character issue, which maybe comes into like a work ethic and things like that. I'm trying to stay away from that. If he's healthy, I think Will Johnson will be the guy that people are like, wow, I think we let him slip a little bit too far.
Austin Mock with The Athletic. Awesome enough to give us some time. Last thing on the way out, Austin, obviously the Steelers go the route of taking Will Howard, a quarterback, obviously out of Ohio State. A lot of big Buckeye fans here on this show, of course, and keeping an eye on Will Howard, of course, with Bengals fans not really liking Pittsburgh at all. Now we have to, of course, cheer for a Buckeye on Pittsburgh. What's the likelihood that Will Howard turns into a franchise caliber quarterback? What was your evaluation of Will Howard in this draft and the value that the Steelers got with him?
Yeah, I think it's fine for where they, pick 185. I think that's a fine value for him. I saw some pretty split opinions. He creeped into some people's big boards at as a top maybe 100 player, but I think he was more, in that 150 range. So I just don't know if it's really hard for me to get behind quarterbacks who don't have either the elite athleticism or the elite arm and all these things. Will Howard's just I think good across the board, just doesn't have the wow traits, and obviously that's why he fell. So I'd say it's probably pretty low, but what's interesting is he's going to get a chance. Now obviously they could sign Aaron Rodgers, who knows what's going on with that, but he's going to get a chance to show his worth there, because unless the Steelers are really bad, which somehow they never find a way to have a losing season, they're not going to have a good draft pick to draft a franchise quarterback over him. So he's going to have probably a year or two here to prove himself. So he'll have the chance. I just, if hopefully they can build up I guess it's hopefully if you're an Ohio State fan perspective, not a Browns or Bengals fan here, but if they build up the personnel, if they build up the personnel around him, then I think that's what he needs to be. He's not going to, I don't see him as a guy who's elevating the rest of his, offensive personnel, which I think that's what you want in a franchise quarterback. So, small chance there, but he's going to have every opportunity to do it over the next probably year or two in Pittsburgh.
All right, good stuff. Austin Mock with The Athletic. Awesome enough to give us some time. Austin, appreciate you. Where can our viewers and listeners find your work?
Yeah, I'm over at The Athletic. AMOC419 is my social media on all platforms. I am on all of them. So if you ever have anything, my DMs are open. Reach out to me, and I'll gladly talk some ball with you. So.
All right, good stuff. Austin, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. You too.
All right, good stuff. We'll pick up, and we'll takeaways from our conversation with Austin when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, thank you, Austin Mock with The Athletic, for giving us time. My favorite part about that was he gave the Browns a really, really good grade. The Bengals a really, really bad grade, but he was friendlier to the Bengals in the conversation than the Browns. He took more shots at my former team, not my current team, my former team, because my current team is Houday, baby. My current team is the Cincinnati Bengals, of course. But look, takeaway, I think draft grades, I mean, everyone does them. You have to do them. It's obviously content, and people, will say that they're silly or whatever, but they get people talking. They get people's reaction. Obviously, if you're a Bengals fan, you don't like the grade that he gave. What did you think of his explanation for how he came about, obviously, giving the Bengals the grade that he did?
That's why I asked the first question I asked the way I did instead of just coming at the D- grade. I think once, I read through the article last night when you said we were having him on, and his rankings are, I think, for a team not like the Bengals, probably better to look at than the normal rankings because he's not pulling up, his big board and comparing it to what the draft picks are. He's using draft pick values in terms of trades, like he mentioned with the Browns, as well as positional value across the NFL and ranking them according to the other 32 teams. So that's why the Bengals did poorly. They didn't draft great positionally because they drafted a running back, they drafted 2 guards, they drafted 2 linebackers. What are the least valuable positions you can have? Running back, guard, and linebacker. So obviously that's going to pull them down significantly in a model like this, but I do think those players being instant impact players, though it doesn't look great from a granular size of what the Bengals were able to do in the draft, I think the instant impact is going to swing that pretty drastically if these guys are able to contribute to this defense this year and raise that from 27 to 15. I mean, that's something that maybe that's not the best prospect to take in that situation, but if it gives Joe Burrow the best chance of holding the Lombardi Trophy in February, then it is the right pick for the Bengals. So a D- I think is absolutely fair compared to the rest of the league and draft boards and draft values and positional value and everything that he uses to bring into these rankings. But I think for a team like the Bengals that are in their window right now and picking higher than anyone in that facility thinks they should be, they drafted for need, and I think that's justifiable as well.
Yeah, I don't think that a D- is terribly unjust, or a D, whatever he gave the Bengals, just because I think that if you look from the outside, there's 2 ways to look at it. There's the unbiased way where it's like, all right, you just take the number that you need, and then there's the in-house way that you look at it like, all right, here's what we need,
right,
not what the rest of the league needs. So I understand if the Bengals did what they need over what the rest of the league sees as, the next best available, right? I understand both sides, and I don't think it's that fair because I do think he's right. I do think they reached on
for sure
nearly every pick almost
the middle 4 for sure.
So
middle 3.
I have no qualms with it.
Yeah, I think the easy thing, for draft boards and everything, all they have, and it's a lot, and it takes a lot of time to go through it, and I really appreciate all the draft analysts that give us so much information to comb through, but all they have is film. And then when the combine rolls around, they get the combine numbers of the 40 and the bench press and what these guys can do in shorts, and you try your best to combine those two with the other stuff you hear from within organizations, but no one knew that Scott Peters stayed after Georgia's pro day to work out Dylan Fairchild one-on-one.
Yeah.
Like, no one knew Demetrius Knight met with Zach Taylor after he was in the building at the Combine because they really liked each other and Zach Taylor thinks he's a leader of the team. Like, there's so much stuff off the field that goes into a lot of these picks that leads to why guys go where they go. And I guarantee you, if you look at the Bengals board, they didn't reach on those middle 3 picks. I would venture to say they got value on some of those picks if you look at their board compared to the consensus board. Zach Taylor said Al Golden was sitting there pacing in the draft room waiting for Demetrius Knight to be there at 49. We all knew Demetrius Knight was going to be there at 49, but if they think, he's a top 35, top 40 player in all of the draft and they get him at 49, I'm sure they're doing jumping jacks while most of us are rolling our eyes, So it's tough when you don't have an utmost faith in your coaching staff. We see the Patriots do this a lot. They take Cole Strange in the first round a couple years ago, the guard from Chattanooga, and everyone unanimously says, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. He was in our hundreds, but if Belichick wants him, I guess it was the right pick.
Yeah.
Zach Taylor and this coaching staff doesn't get that same benefit out, and that's certainly fair. I'm not saying they should, but to a degree, we have to believe in this staff and what they're able to do. They do have more wins in the playoffs than the Bengals have had before they got here, so to a degree, they've done a good job of building this.
If this draft doesn't go well, as far as the production. And again, I don't know how many years you need to have before you know whether it's technically a productive draft class or not.
Yeah.
But if this is another class that just gives you just average production, I mean, when does the conversation really start to happen of, okay, the Bengals have to mix it up a bit? We've talked about them obviously becoming more modern day with how they approach contracts and extensions and guaranteed money and the way that they structure these contracts. We talk about an organization that needs to kind of be more modern with its approach there. If this draft class doesn't pan out, when do you start, Jacob, as the big a Bengals fan as you are and the way you talk about the draft? At what point do you start shaking your head saying, all right, something has to change, because it can't just always be the same old, getting the same old results. I know they had a couple really good draft classes that they truly benefited from, obviously, in 20 and 21, but we're on a couple draft classes now where it just has not they haven't been able to maximize it the way they did those two. If this becomes the third straight draft class where it's a little underwhelming, when do you start hitting that button of like, all right, they have to modernize the way that they approach the draft as well?
I think last year's draft class was pretty unbelievable, so it certainly gives them a little bit more of a grace with me moving forward. The thing that's tough for me with the Bengals is what? If they whiff on these 6 picks, you think they're going to fire Duke Tobin, who's been their director of player personnel for 26 years?
No.
What's the change? What's the change you want? What's the change I'm going to ask for? Usually it's you ask for a new GM, the guy that's in charge of all this thing. You think the Bengals are going to hire more than 4 scouts, which they've never done in the history of this organization? Maybe. But that's just optimism. We've been asking for the changes that another poor draft class would require us to ask for. We've been asking for those changes for a decade, maybe longer. And the fact that Joe Burrow came in and changed our lives put those changes on the back burner for 2 or 3 years. But this is the same problem we had in the early 2010s with Andy Dalton when we thought that team was competitive. And we made 5 playoffs in a row, lost in the first round, and they never seemed to go all in and put pieces around him. It's exponentially worse now because Joe Burrow is obviously 3 times what Andy Dalton was, but it's the same complaints we have. And since we got to the Super Bowl in 2021, it gave them a few years where everyone forgot, but Zach Taylor might be new, Joe Burrow might be new. Everyone above them is the exact same. From the 90s to the 2000s to the 2010s to now, everyone above them is the exact same. And I think that's why Bengals fans give so much credit to Joe Burrow, because the organizational change between what was here before him and what was here now, when the success is so drastically different, the organizational structure is exactly the same. At least, above the head coach, it is exactly the same. Until this year, they didn't break that structure on contracts. Until last year, they didn't really break that structure in the draft. I don't know what change you could even ask for that you could have any slight percentage of faith is going to happen.
Yeah, no, I don't think that anything would change if they didn't miss on this draft. I don't think anything would change if they don't miss or if they don't hit on the next 15 drafts. It's the way the Bengals have run. It's the way the Bengals are going to run. Is that the wrong method? I don't know. The method got them to a Super Bowl in the last 5 years, so I can only talk so much trash about what their method is. So, all I'll say is I hope that most of these guys work out. Because if they don't, the future of the Bengals certainly looks a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Casey, I sent you that tweet from Diana Rossini earlier today. If you want to pop that up on the screen, we talked a lot about obviously Trey Hendrickson and the ongoing contract negotiation there. Kind of feel like it's something that the Bengals aren't aggressively trying to really pay him big dollars for a long period of time. So we've kind of put that on the back burner or whatever. I like the question that Elliot threw out to Austin a little bit ago, like, if Trey Hendrickson, all of a sudden, if he is a part of this Bengals team long-term, does that maximize the value of what they did in this draft? Thought that was a good question. Well, Diana Rossini, also with The Athletic, said that she did a little digging on it, and she's still getting really good vibes coming out of Cincy that they are going to try and get a deal done with Trey Hendrickson. I know that's not a major update, but this is a recent tweet that Diana Rossini is still getting recent information from that, hey, there is activity going on behind the scenes. Where are we with that ongoing negotiation? I know this is becoming tiresome like the T. Higgins contract was, as far as contracts go. Where are we with that tweet right there from Diana Rossini? Do you truly believe that there is a lot of work behind the scenes of trying to lock him up long term?
I don't know about long term. I think that's where a lot of people jumped to with that tweet, was that the Bengals are trying to lock up Trey Hendrickson long term, but she just said they're committed to getting a deal done, right? And I think the likelihood of a deal getting done is something that involves him going through training camp and playing this year. I don't know if that's an extension. I'm not all the way to the camp where I think the Bengals are going all in on paying Trey Hendrickson $32 million to play for them for the next 3 years. I think what this might be talking about is the Bengals are very optimistic that when they tack on $8 million to that $16 million contract, Trey Hendrickson's going to put the helmet on in training camp. I think that's probably the more realistic outlook here, is that the Bengals are trying to quell the issues they went through last offseason, with a lot of the stuff trickling into the early season, which I'm sure they credit for their slow start, or at least part of it. And Zach Taylor's already talked about how much he wants to change the offseason program, how much he wants to change the preseason plan going through to get to week 1 and have a better chance to beat, the teams early in the schedule. And I think part of that is going through the offseason plan without any distractions. And the only distraction you have left on your plate is Trey Hendrickson, probably until Jermaine Burton does something else. But right now, it's just Trey Hendrickson. And you have to get that figured out before training camp to give yourself the best shot to go and compete for a Super Bowl, because you only have, 1 or 2 more shots with this group of guys that you have here right now, including Trey, including some of the pieces on this defense that are getting a little older. And I think, it's something that I'm really focused on, and I would be too if I was the Bengals, is get this taken care of before the people are back in the facility, because that's the best chance you have to go win something of meaning.
Casey, will tag you in on this too. Trey, what do you take away from Rossini's tweets earlier today?
Yeah, I not much of a different opinion than what Jacob already said. I think the ultimate goal is for the Bengals to get something done. I don't think that necessarily means a 3-year extension. The smart move is to only give him enough money this year that he's happy enough to play, to where it's not a distraction. We can say our goodbyes afterwards. The thing about Diana Rossini is that I just don't know how much I take away from these reporters, because I feel like we already got this maybe a month ago that they were close to a Trey extension, and then it didn't happen.
I think it was broken that the Trey extension was done.
Yeah, there was I just don't know. We trusted the one guy that broke the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase news, and he said Trey's right around the corner, and we're here a month later after that. And
maybe it was just a really big corner. The first leg to get around the building was 10 blocks, and you just saw the corner up there, and Trey's right around it, but it's going to take a while to get there.
Yeah, it might just be that. I don't know. All honesty, I feel like the idea that the Bengals, she reported it from the Bengals perspective, that they're still hopeful.
Shocked.
I just feel like it would be a different story if we heard Trey Hendrickson's camp say that they're hopeful for an extension. I think that would be way bigger of a news than getting the Bengals perspective, because, of course the Bengals
We've heard Trey Hendrickson's camp a lot, and it's just been lies and deceit and tomfoolery. I don't want to hear from Trey Hendrickson's camp anymore. Put your gosh darn helmet on and play football. You signed an extension 2 years ago, and you're holding out 2 summers in a row? Play football. Fair. You told our team that we could get a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, and we got nothing close. Now it's your fault. You're playing for 16.5. I don't care anymore. I just don't.
Yeah, I think we as fans are getting real tired of the nonsense with contracts over the last couple seasons. Hopefully this is the last one we have to deal with for a while. But, just my perspective on it, I think we haven't really learned much of anything, to be honest with you. I feel like, of course, the Bengals are hopeful for an extension. I feel like they were that way about a month ago, and we haven't gotten it anywhere.
I guarantee you they were hopeful about a T. Higgins extension this time last year. Yeah. Jamar Chase. I'm sure that was the same quotes we were reading this time last year about getting those deals done before holdouts became public in training camp and everything like that. So this means nothing to me, as much as I want to be optimistic.
Question, last year, T. Higgins ended up signing the tender in early June, and it caught everyone by surprise. Not that he signed it, it was the fact that he did it so early in the summer, because we thought that would really start to bleed into camp. Hendrickson, who of course made a lot of noise when he of course requested the trade and threatened retirement and all that. Ultimately, both of them came out and said, hey, as the season got closer and they realized, hey, Joe Burrow's healthy and there's Super Bowl expectations, they both just didn't want to be distractions. They both just wanted to contribute towards the team accomplishing their end goal, which is to compete and win a Super Bowl. The pressure of them not wanting to be a distraction got to them last offseason. Do you think that same pressure could get to Hendrickson, where eventually he just says, you know what, I'm not going to win this battle. let's just go out there and prove my value, prove my worth, help a team win a Super Bowl, and cash in on it next offseason. How much do you think the pressure that got to them last year, do you think that same pressure gets to them or to him, I should say, this offseason, where he just says, you know what, forget it. Let's just go. No distractions. Everyone's healthy. Let's go try to win a Super Bowl.
Probably twice as fast, because I would imagine last year when you're holding out and you can text the other star players on the team that are also holding out and in contract disputes and say, hey, what's the plan, guys? Are we going to practice today? Are we not? Am I retiring? What's going on? I'm sure that certainly helps with a holdout plan. Shamar and T have their own group chat now talking about being paid $110 million apiece. So Trey's been left out, and he's on his own with his holdout now. Again, he signed a contract 2 years ago. And now he just doesn't want to play on it. Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very tough for Trey Hendrickson to hold out into training camp this year. I also think a big difference between this year and last year is where the fan base lies. I think last year when Trey Hendrickson said, I'm going to retire, most of this fan base said, Mike Brown, you're the worst. Duke Tobin, you're the worst. Get it worked out with our guys. Now that they've built up some cachet with the fans, with extending Jamar Chase, extending T. Higgins, obviously a couple years ago getting Joe Burrow worked out, we would like them to extend Trey Hendrickson at a price that makes sense for both sides. Absolutely. I'm not making it sound like the Bengals are going to be better off without Trey Hendrickson in the next 2 years, but I think they might be better off than without Trey Hendrickson on a $31 million contract at age 33. So I think it's a discussion that has to be had. I think Trey Hendrickson understands the dilemma, and I think the fact that they paid the other two guys pretty quickly makes it that much harder for him to hold out.
I commend the Bengals. They paid Trey Hendrickson before the other two. They did their job. They got him at a cheap price. It's not the Bengals' fault that he wants to re-up that price every single game he plays. So I'm out. I mean, listen, I want him to be a Bengal. I want him to play here. I think he's really damn good. It's just, the patience is out. Nobody has any more patience for the Trey Hendrickson dilemma.
3 years, $96 million, and he goes out next year and gets like 22 sacks. Then what? He's holding out again?
Yeah, I mean, listen. I hope there's a team out there that wants to give him $700 trillion at age 30. I hope there is that team. But for right now, he's under contract for the Cincinnati Bengals to play next season. I hope he honors that contract.
All right, well, good stuff today. We're wrapping it up on radio. We'll continue on here on Chatterbox Sports YouTube, but that does wrap it up for us. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and until next Monday, this has been Off the Bench, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube and 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton.
It's Super Chat Friday. It is Super Chat Friday. More Super Chats today than we've had in a long time. Let's go to Colton, $5. Our guy Colton. Boys, I've been slammed at work the last 2 weeks. Hope you guys have been well and have a great Friday. Thank you very much, Colton. Love you, buddy. And we have Michael Rolfe, $20 Super Chat. Elliot, my zebra friend. Moist is a bad word. I jumped off my mower to make this point. I'll keep it PG for your guest. Moist basements equal bad moist armpits equals bad moist lava equals bad moist at Kings Island equals bad.
Okay. I don't have a problem with the word moist, honestly.
You like the word moist.
I don't not like it.
Amazing Fetus, he paid $2 to spell my name wrong. Elliot wishes he was from Mason like Reed. Listen, the Mason bit lives on. I love the Mason bit. That's the one thing about me that everybody knows.
That's right. It makes a lot of sense. That's why we like it.
It does.
What was the name of that account again?
You're talking about the Amazing Fetus? So
yeah,
is that the
I like how that's just been normalized. Like that's just not even a weird name anymore.
That's his name.
We asked him if he was a burner, and he DM'd Elliot a picture of his ID. So we love the Amazing.
Yeah, I know his real name, but
he just straight up a photo.
Yeah, I'm not
of the photo ID. So not a burner, real guy.
Yeah, we don't do government IDs. Ask Mouse Cop. We don't do government names here on this show.
Under the sea.
What a weird show today. What were we rating the Reds earlier? Poopy butt? What did you say earlier? Like, I mean, it's been a while.
Did you see? You said the Cardinals were poopy butt, right?
I did. I did.
The Amazing Fetus, another super chat, $2. You lost the privilege of the second T. But no, I don't have two.
There is no two T's.
So that's good.
I think he might be doing my Matt McLain bit from earlier in the show.
Yeah.
I said it's CC now that until he gets above the Mendoza.
I see.
So maybe he's adding the T.
I don't know.
He's saying you had a bad performance?
Maybe he did. Maybe I did. I apologize. Listen, I'm going to roll on here to the Kentucky Derby. Listen, there hasn't been a second of this week where Casey, Jacob, myself, and Kinner haven't thought about the Kentucky Derby.
That's correct.
We've been all over it. We've been all over the lines. We've been all over these horses. So, Casey, I'm going to read the names of these horses, and we're going to take a guess on how accurate you think those odds are to the real odds. So, so you go by like 10-1, 20-1.
You also got to tell us who your favorite is and who your pick is with your extensive background knowledge on these.
Do you understand the game? I say the name, you say either 5-1, 20-1, whatever to 1, because that's how horse racing does it.
And then you tell us the real.
Then I tell you the real thing, and then at the end we're going to say, Casey, who's your lock? Okay?
Okay.
All right. Here we go. We start with Citizen Bull. Ooh. Citizen Bull.
Trained by Bob Baffert.
Trained by Bob Baffert.
My goat.
What do you think the odds are?
I'm going to say 15-1.
Pretty close. 20-1, Citizen Bull. No idea how to say the next one. Neokuos?
Nequius. Ooh.
Not a clue on that one. Good save on that. How do you know that?
No idea if that's right.
Okay, well, whatever that is.
Say it with confidence.
Whatever that is.
Well, Nequius is certainly.
Nequius is such a sick name.
What is it?
9-1. Certainly.
Not even close. 30-1. Final Gambit.
Final Gambit. That sounds like a returner, like a returning horse.
Okay.
Oh, I want to make a name for myself here.
Final Gambit.
That's an MCU reference.
It's an MCU reference to Gambit.
Certainly is. It certainly is. That horse is going to make a name for itself. I'm going to say 5-1.
There we go.
Not even close. It's 30-1. American Promise.
Now,
the
sadly,
Promise.
we did just skip over Rodriguez, who was scratched, who I did bet on last week, and it just pushed back. Yeah, that was Bob Baffert's favorite. I'm always a Bob Baffert guy.
American Promise.
Well, the last 2 or 3 horses have been 30-1, so let's do 35-1.
Almost 30-1.
Maybe you're going to catch on at some point.
Yeah, maybe I should.
Admire Daytona. Admire Daytona.
I would love it if you got this one wrong.
Admire Daytona.
Yep.
I'm going to say 17-1.
30-1.
Jesus Christ, Casey.
30-1. Luxor Cafe. This is Elliot's pick of the weekend.
This is a great one.
This is my horse. Luxor Cafe.
Have you ever been to the Luxor?
Never.
It's a hotel in Vegas. It's very nice.
Is it?
It's where they had the draft.
Is it? Luxor Cafe. This is my horse to win.
Man, I'm thinking that this is a pretty dominant horse. Yeah. I'm going to say 30-1.
No.
15 to 1.
15
15 to 1.
The bit changed
This
up on
one's
me.
just called journalism.
That's us.
Casey, have you got any of these yet?
Journalism.
Has Casey
No,
got any
he's
of
not.
these?
We're going until he gets one. Journalism.
Everyone loves good journalism, not that fake news, okay? So let's talk about some good journalism here, Casey.
Journalism.
The betting favorite.
The betting
Ooh.
favorite.
So hey, Jacob, give you a hint.
Is it 5 to 1?
Almost 3 to 1. Close. Journalism is 3 to 1. What about Burnham Square?
I'm gonna say that's a 30 to 1.
12 to 1. Flying Mohawk.
23 to 1.
30 to 1. East Avenue.
17 to 1.
20 to 1. Publisher.
20 to 1.
Yes, you got one.
Wow,
You got it.
there we
You got
go.
it. All right, some of the other horses, Tiz-tastic.
Nice.
Render Judgment.
Cool.
Coal Battle.
Ooh.
Sandman.
Nice.
Sovereignty? I think
Okay.
Sovereignty. Chunk of Gold.
Nice.
Owen,
Seems heavy.
Owen Almighty.
I like that.
There's Owen Almighty, not Evan
like
or Bruce. It's Owen Almighty and Beza. So based on the horses that we've said, any names stick out for you, Casey, as your lock?
Well, Final Gambit for sure is one of those that I absolutely love. The Tizdat, the first one that you started reading off, I love that.
Tiz-tastic?
Tiz-tastic?
Yeah, love Tiztastic.
What about my-
journalism? I hate journalism, so definitely couldn't be betting on that horse.
If you take the favorite at the Kentucky Derby, jail.
I agree.
Jail.
Jail.
Yeah.
I feel like it doesn't really win that much, too.
Well, I mean, whoever you bet on's not going to win.
I won last year. You can speak for yourself. But all right, Kenner, any of those horses stand out for you? Kentucky Derby.
I'll go with journalism.
He's
I'll
going
be
with the
bold.
odds-on favorite journalism. That's
Go
fine.
with
like
the odds-on
journalism.
favorite, because
Yeah.
you just said
That's fine.
said jail.
That's
Jail.
fine.
So, there's
And
that.
Jacob, your horse scratched. Who's your new horse?
Yeah, it's a shame. I'm going to have to go with Baffert's other guy. What was one of the first names we read there?
It was the very Citizen Bull.
Citizen Bull's my pick. I'll always go with Baffert. He's the GOAT.
I might ride you on that one. Again, my pick is Luxor Cafe. He's the 7
I
horse.
detailed that after you told us that yesterday.
Believe in Luxor Cafe. I also don't fully understand trifectas or the box.
Yeah.
I don't get how that works.
Well, you just bet 1, 2, 3, but you can do it in exact order or not.
Okay, I see. So what does the box mean?
Box,
If there's a box trifecta.
But it's just how exact you have to pick stuff.
Okay, all right. Well, all right.
I don't know what all the individual
Well, if somebody's
words
got
mean.
any of those parlays for me.
I always do the 1, 2, 3, but the one with the worst odds, where it's if the 3 horses finish in any order, 1,
Yeah.
2, and 3, you get the win. The psychos are the ones that do it. You have to pick it
Okay.
like straight down.
I see.
We do have some breaking news and some pretty sad news in the world of basketball. Greg Popovich is out as the head coach
Wow.
of the San Antonio Spurs. Multiple gold medals as the head coach of Team USA. He's the all-time winningest coach in NBA history. He's a Hall of Famer and a multiple-time NBA champion. Obviously, Coach David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. First couple of years of Victor Wembanyama's career, a force in the NBA as a head coach. Has underwent some serious medical concerns over the last few years, and it seems like that has forced his hand to step away from the San Antonio Spurs.
That is sad. That is sad. One of the best coaches, certainly, maybe ever. I mean, but certainly in the last 3 decades, he's been unbelievable as the head coach of the Spurs. I know it didn't end great for him. He's had multiple stints where he hasn't been able to coach the team. But boy, he is one of the best. How old is he now?
That I do not know, but I would assume well into his 70s.
76?
70.
76.
Yeah.
What's
good
the
for him.
likelihood?
Unbelievable career.
For a while, it was trending towards Becky Hammond being the head coach of the Spurs once he retired. I wonder if they go back down that route. I wonder if Becky Hammond would actually be legitimately considered to be a head coach for the Spurs. I'm wondering. They didn't announce that he's replacing him. Right? It's just his retirement.
No announcement of any kind of plans or anything like that. If there is, before we get off air, I'll try to update everybody. But he will be becoming the full-time president of basketball for the San Antonio Spurs. So not stepping fully away from the game, still will be involved in that organization. But the Spurs head coaching job,
That's
where
one of
does
the best.
this rank in openings in the history of sports?
Yeah, I don't know where it would rank in the history of sports.
I think it's just close to 1.
I know it's certainly probably 1-1 in the NBA right now at the second.
I mean, distantly, you have Wembanyama, who is the future face of the league. Everyone thinks he's a unicorn. Spoiler alert, Stephon Castle just won Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah.
You traded for De'Aaron Fox, who didn't even play this season. You have one of the cleanest salary sheets in all of basketball. You have 27 picks in the next 4 years. I don't know how it can get much better than San Antonio.
Yeah, it's awesome.
They're going to have their pick of the litter. I would assume Wemby is very, very involved in those conversations and see where it goes. But I would imagine that that's a list that's going to be very interesting to see. Name that I'll throw out there right now, take a stab at it right after Greg Popovich steps away. I'll say Michael Malone. I think the Spurs go out and hire Michael Malone. The Nuggets fired him. He's a championship coach. He's really, really good at his job, and I think that's the direction they'll go to be a contender right away.
I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to say LeBron.
Wow.
LeBron coaches the Spurs to a championship and gets the Lakers to the conference championship in the same year.
Okay.
Something Jordan's never done.
Well, he's not going to play for the Lakers next year. You didn't see that?
Where's he going now?
Well, Nico was right.
The
The three amigos, Kyrie, LeBron, and AD, running Dallas.
Oh, that would be so funny. God, that would be funny.
Nico was right.
I still think you're going to hear Becky Hammond's name be mentioned for it. I just have a weird feel like that was they were trending that way before she took that WNBA job. I feel, and then especially because Popovich, who was an advocate for that, if he's remaining as president of operations or whatever you said the title was, if he's still going to play a role with the organization and play a role in deciding who the next head coach is, I wouldn't be surprised if they went that route. But that job, that's like when when LeBron was drafted by the Cavs. Obviously, he played for Paul Silas early. But then when Paul Silas, they fired him, I mean, everyone was thinking, okay, there's going to be some big head coaches that are going for that job. They went in the direction of Mike Brown. Mike Brown took him to an NBA Finals. That Cavs team never got like a big name head coach. They never went and got like that. Phil Jackson was rumored for the longest time during that stretch of going there. Never got a big name head coach. I don't know how many big name head coaches are out there right now to take that Spurs job. Look out for Steve Kerr, who could be the Kevin Durant of head coaches. He could be the one that leaves the Warriors to go take on the Spurs job. I wouldn't be surprised there. He won a championship with the Spurs as a player. I could see Steve Kerr taking that job too. So who knows?
Do you think Steph's retiring then? Because I don't think there's any way Steve Kerr leaves Steph Curry hanging in Golden State for a year or two.
No, I don't think so.
Come on over. Come over.
Maybe,
Come play with Wemby.
That'd be
Get rid of Chris
crazy.
Paul.
That would tank Steph's legacy pretty bad, I think.
No. Poor
He's
Steph.
giving it.
Do you think?
I think his legacy is built. I mean, he's a great player. I think a lot of that is what he's done for Golden State and that he's the franchise player there.
Yeah. I think if you
All right. Well, anything else before we head into the weekend?
Nope. Casey,
Nope.
good luck to your picks.
That's right.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to be watching intently, hoping for Final Gambit to win the whole thing.
In all seriousness, when was the last time you watched a Kentucky Derby?
Probably my first year here.
First year? Mm-hmm. I rarely watch. I tried. I say I'm going to watch, and then it's like I'll come back in like 5 minutes, and by the time 5 minutes happens, it's over, and I missed it. I remember I was at the Reds game last year during it, so.
It's always graduation week at Alabama.
I see.
So it's always scheduled, or all the parties are always scheduled around the Derby. And
yeah,
I never really watched it in high school or anything, but for the last 4 years, it's been a scheduled viewing. It's been a lot of fun.
A reason to drink.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kinder couldn't get us on Radio Row at the Kentucky Derby, huh?
Oh, no.
Couldn't work your magic for that one.
I'm going to try, but no. Don't think there's a lot of room anyways. But
No,
all right. Well, good stuff. I'm out. I'll see you guys next week. Until next week, Off the Bench. 1410 ESPN Radio and Chatterbox Sports on YouTube.
Big weekend for Glue.
Jesus.